What is going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you on Polestar, the stock that everyone loves to hate. I want to go over some of the data points, what's been coming out from the company, and ultimately how low I see things going. Before I get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So currently it is down 1.96%. There was a new 52-week and an all-time low created of $1.98. So I'll kind of touch on that when I go over the technicals because it is bouncing off of a support level. $2.10 is the high, and that's kind of what it opened as, and that was as a result of just broader optimism as a result of good company earnings. And I think that was SoFi and McDonald's, but a lot of good volume today. So 2.05 million shares being traded, 2.7 is the average. At the time of doing this video, no SEC filings, no press releases, nothing like that. Rather, a lot of investors are just trying to forecast in their head what might come from the upcoming Q3 earnings slated for November the 8th. So based on this, what we do know, they did deliver 13,900 vehicles within the first 9 months, 41,700 vehicles. So based on this, they are at least saying that they expect to deliver between their original target of 60 to 70,000 vehicles. Well, actually, I don't think that's their original target. I think their original was 80. They did cut that in Q1, but beside the point though. So going back over here, I think initially when they came out with these numbers, a lot of investors do not believe that they can hit their year-end targets just based on this, and myself included. I actually don't think that they will be able to hit that. If maybe the perfect scenario happened where there was no inflation, no troubles on a larger scale, then yeah, they could probably do that. But as it stands, there's a lot of companies having and experiencing a lot of difficulties on a demand level. And one of which is even Tesla. There's been a ton of videos floating around showing thousands of vehicles just sitting there with no owners and no buyers, nothing like that. So once again, it's not necessarily the best. And based on here, you can actually pose questions to management. So a lot of people have been doing that. It looks like it opened on October the 25th, but these are the top questions. So it says, as an investor, what can we look forward to the stock achieving and your further rollout of your great vehicles to a larger demand? And how are you going to create that demand? So very good question. I would in reality kind of anticipate them to kind of already talk on a lot of those points anyways, especially when they go over their future guidance. This one, it says, what is your plans to stop the short-term bleeding? Which is kind of a good question. I would rather have it reworded, what is your plan to incentivize institutions to invest in Polestar? I think that might be a better question because technically for your stock to go up, you need big money, right? Retail is not going to save Polestar. And right now, institutions have been kind of hesitant to get into Polestar. I'll go over to the latest round of 13Fs and so forth. But the third question right here does say, when can we expect to see production from the South Carolina facility? And what impact will that have on the company? And this question kind of goes back to that Tesla scenario that I mentioned, but it says, are you concerned about pricing pressure from Tesla price cuts? What is the main value add that compels a consumer to buy a Polestar over a Tesla or another consumer? So I think this one is probably one of the best questions that they could ask. Why? Simple as that. And I think that can actually be extended to almost anyone, any question about anything out there. So if someone says, hey, I love Rivian, why? If someone says, I love Lucid, why? Like, this is probably one of the best questions. Why choose Polestar over Tesla? Get them to answer. And I think based on a lot of these questions, the management as it stands, so Thomas, I don't think he is suited to answer a lot of these questions. Nothing against Thomas or whatever else, but ultimately, like, this is something I've said from the get-go. Polestar comes off as engineers. They're very smart. You can kind of tell that. But are they good at sales? Can they market themselves? Because at the same time, like, you have to market the company. Rivian does a very good job of that. Every single earnings, they say, you know what, we have massive demand. Like, there's some obviously bigger headwinds coming, but we still have demand. So they do still keep that engagement with retail investors and just institutions and show that they have a desired product. Whereas with Polestar, not so much, right? And especially with the recent offering that they did, like, it shows that Polestar doesn't really know what they're doing and how to manage a company. Like, they might have very good vehicles, but can they manage the underlying business? So far, I would say no. And this is probably why institutions haven't really got in. All of that was just my interpretation, of course. Latest round of 13Fs did come down the pipeline. Anything highlighted in green is brand new positions. So oddly enough, there is quite a lot more than I was anticipating. And actually, you do see a lot of institutions just kind of maintaining their position. So I am actually kind of surprised based on all this. And on a side note, all of this did occur during Q3. And most likely a lot of institutions have been maintaining or either getting in based on the metrics. So as it stands, currently the PS ratio for Polestar is 1.6. The future is 1.2. That is crazy cheap, especially compared to, I think Tesla is about 2.5. There's Lucid, which is almost at 13. Rivian, which is like at 7. Like, this is crazy, the fact that Polestar is at 1.6. And I've signaled that in the past. The fact that Polestar's price does not make sense whatsoever. But still, with that said though, despite the discount with the multiples and so forth, just nobody seems to be buying essentially. And what I mean by that is just looking at the options. So dollar value has been going down and down over the last little bit, but today there's around $6,700 in calls being purchased versus 15,000 in puts, which so far today, 80% of all the options is bearish. And even if we zoom out looking at the last 7 days, about $163 in calls being purchased versus 179 in puts. So even though there's been new 52-week and all-time lows created, nobody really sees a screaming buying opportunity with Polestar, which is very concerning. And even looking at a lot of the calls, the open interest, you see nothing. You see no massive demand. January the 19th, it does show a little bit of optimism around the $2.50 mark, but so the optimistic viewpoint is $2.50 plus by January. That doesn't seem too compelling, or once again screaming, saying that this is a crazy buying opportunity. And even looking at puts, you do see a lot more activity around the $1 range. So a lot of people are anticipating for this to, oddly enough, be sub $1. Maybe even after the earnings, because you do see as of November the 17th expiry date, that's where it kind of starts to have the 1,000 in open interest at the $1 strike. So something to consider. But like I said, when it comes down to the technicals, this is what's been bleeding for a while now. So with it at $2, it is on a very psychological support level. So that's kind of been the saving grace right now. And even if you look at the level 2 on the shorts, there's a massive wall right now at 2. So it's been kind of holding so far. Well, not really, I guess, because it kind of did temporarily break that, but it bounced also off of this S2. So $1.95 is also another strong support. So you kind of have back-to-back support levels. So right now that's been kind of holding, and vice versa, $2.26 is going to be the next strong resistance. But I do feel that the trend overall is going to continue to pull it down. And in fact, their upcoming earnings might actually be the X factor to take it to potentially $1.50. And I don't see realistically it getting below $1.50, because at that stage, the multiples will be probably around 1.2. And if that's the case, then I don't know, this stock would be too cheap for a lot of investors or even institutions to ignore at that stage. But that's just my own interpretation, as I'm not a financial advisor. You guys always do your own due diligence. So I do realistically see at least $1.50 in the short term. If Polestar does not fix how much they're bleeding through, and potentially just on a larger scale, because they have kind of signaled within, I think it was the Q2 earnings, a lot of infrastructure that because of currency conversions, it's not advantageous for them to really push in the States. And with that Carolina facility opening up, that might be problematic in among itself. So once again, I do feel that there's a lot of things that they have to fix in order for them to trend higher. So worst case scenario, I do feel that if they don't fix a lot of their issues, at least in the short term, by probably Q1 of 2024, they might be touching $1. Of course, a lot of things have to go very, very wrong by that stage. But so far, the technicals have been accurate. So every time I've been doing a video and I've kind of talked on technicals, it has come true for the most part. So I do feel in at least the short term, $1.50 might be realistic, and that is where a lot of institutions should be buying. If there's a massive amount of blood in the market, then it might get a little bit worse. But let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. Give yourself a shout out. Have you been buying Polestar? Have you been selling? What is your take on Polestar? I know I've said this in the past. A lot of people seem to like it. just for whatever reason, just no institution seem to really want to touch that. So let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And even though Polestar goes up, down, sideways, all over the place, take advantage of free promos, and that is with 𝗪𝗧𝗛. So sign up for an account with 𝗪𝗧𝗛, throw $100 at it, and you get 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. So take advantage of this. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all of that said, I appreciate all of you watching.